Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is the 5th episode of the story in which Naruto has gained knowledge of his heritage and of a bloodline thought extinct. He must now leave Konoha to master his new abilities and bring back the glory of the Uzumaki, and he will have the help of a 5th Kage of Kirigakure with a similar past. After watching, like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin. Terumi Uzumaki Estate. Naruto opened his eyes, the window bringing the early morning sun rays right into his retina, forcing him to bury himself in his pillows. In this case, Naruto happened to snuggle further into Mei's large breasts, who was still asleep. She moaned in appreciation and quietly moaned his name. Smiling, Naruto kissed up her chest and landed on her lips, to which he kissed all around them until finally launching his tongue into her open mouth. "I'm being especially daring this morning. I suppose I'm still excited about our date today." Mei opened her eyes and awoke to Naruto jamming his tongue down her throat. It surprised and enticed her. Sending her tongue after his, her arms wrapped around his neck and they shared a passionate morning kiss. Breaking it, the two looked into each other's eyes. Both were practically sparkling. "Good morning, Naruto Koi." She smiled at him, to which he returned with one of his own. "Morning, Mei. Are you ready for our date today?" She nodded, excited about the plan for today. "I think I'll get him to discuss our wedding and other things today," she thought with a blush. "We better get ready, we can't stay in bed all day, can we?" Naruto suggested, to which Mei moaned, hugging her blonde pillow tightly around his waist. But can't we stay in bed a little longer, Naruto?" Naruto just smiled and shook his head, doing his best to ignore the fake tears and puppy dog eyes she was giving him. "I'm afraid not, Mei, there is a lot to do today." Mei sighed and slowly released him from her embrace, climbing out of bed completely naked. She smirked as Naruto ogled her while she put on her underwear, purposely putting them on slowly for him. "You are such a pervert, Naruto," she told him with her hands on her hips, trying her best to look angry when she really wasn't. His perverted qualities served to excite Mei much more than they annoyed her. "Hey, when you have a beautiful fiancé, these things tend to happen," Naruto said, shrugging his shoulders with an innocent look. Mei giggled. "Well, I have a handsome fiancé, but I don't toggle." Mei fully turned around from dressing herself to see Naruto was still naked. His piece was erect after watching her put on her clothing. Naruto smirked. "You don't what, Mei?" "I didn't quite catch that." Shaking her head to escape from fantasies, Mei just scoffed and turned to walk out of the room. "Get dressed, mister, we have a date and much to discuss." The way she emphasized much made him very interested in what she wanted to speak about, so he quickly pulled on his black undershirt and pants before deciding to go with the simple Kiri jounin vest. It was a dark gray vest that had 2 large breast pockets either side. Small shoulder plates jutted out from where his shoulders were. The collar on the vest was also very high, and Naruto always complained that it made him uncomfortable, but the quartermaster would hear none of it. "It'll protect you from decapitation, kid. I probably saved your life by giving you this vest, blah blah. If a ninja is strong enough, he shouldn't get into the position where he could be decapitated." He adjusted his forehead protector, checking it in the mirror and making sure it fit snugly on his forehead. The final piece were 2 black, fingerless gloves with metal protectors on the back. Mei always told him for a guy he spent way too much time on appearance, but Naruto always enjoyed getting dressed into his ninja gear. It made him feel legit. "Naruto, do you need me to help me with your makeup? I think I would be better suited for it." Naruto groaned at Mei's mocking. He wouldn't hear the end of it if the guards told anyone about this. "It's called being mature, Mei. Maybe you should try it sometime." It got eerily quiet after that, and Naruto was a little afraid to leave the room. Moving over to the sliding door, he cautiously opened the door a bit to peek out and saw no one in front of the door. Sighing in relief, Naruto opened the door and turned left, only to be stopped by an irate Mei. She was tapping her foot on the floor angrily. Meiheim?" His answer was a fist to the face. An Uzumaki was all for fun and pranks, but their stubbornness and anger were very infamous too. Mei towered over his unconscious body with a big smirk. She began to drag him by his feet downstairs to the living room. The Uzumaki may have been a patriarchal clan, but the Uzumaki women were always known for keeping their men in check. Poor Naruto, he's the head of the clan and yet he gets dominated by his fiancée, hee. Kirigakure Naruto and Mei walked out of the estate with looped arms, their hands interlocked with one another. Naruto was sweating bullets after the tense morning encounter and Mei just had a big happy smile on her face, a little too happy. Walking through town to their chosen destination, Naruto and Mei made small talk about the nature and history of Kiri itself. Mei was always happy to give detail on its past with the blonde. Upon arriving at the village's park, the couple moved off to the grassy field and away from the more populated areas of the park. It was another sunny day in Kiri and they wanted to soak up the warm rays. They also didn't want anyone to disturb them while they were together. Naruto pulled out the cloth he had been carrying in his pocket and laid it out on the ground. They had decided to have a nice picnic today and just talk. Mei sat down on the cloth and took off the bag she was carrying on her shoulder. She had opted to attempt to fix their food today. Naruto had reluctantly agreed after she had set her mind to becoming the best housewife for him. He really didn't mind all the cooking he had to do, but she insisted. Taking out her own meal first, Mei observed the simple meal of fish and rice, the fish itself being another of the rare species found near Yuzu country. Naruto's mouth was watering now. He couldn't wait to see what Mei tried to make him. Here Naruto, she quickly thrust out his meal with her head bowed low, anxious and embarrassed at what his reaction to her cooking attempt would be. Naruto looked at the meal and smiled. It was ramen. No one, not even Mei, could make bad ramen in Naruto's book, so he took the noodles with his favorite pork meat and had a cautious bite. Mei looked on with wide eyes as he had moved the noodles and meat to his mouth, anxious for his reaction. So how is it, Naruto-koi? Naruto chomped on the noodles and savored the flavor before swallowing, putting down his dish and looking at Mei with a serious face. She seemed to shrink under his gaze. It was good. You are definitely getting better, Mei. I can't wait to have more of your home cooking. Mei just got teary-eyed and looked down at the ground. Naruto was afraid he had said something wrong. He reached out with his arm but was literally blown back when Mei suddenly shot back up and pumped her fist into the air in victory. Yes, I'm doing better. One day I'll get to cook for Naruto-koi and our children. Woohoo! Naruto outright blushed at the sound of children, but Mei seemed totally oblivious. After she had calmed down and they resumed eating, Naruto decided to raise the discussion on the future of their relationship. Hey Mei, you mentioned kids a little while ago. Have you already decided that you want children with me? Mei looked at him incredulously, as if she couldn't believe he didn't think that already. Of course I'm going to end up having your children, Naruto-koi. I know you want to bring back our clan, and both of us being purebloods means that our children will be guaranteed to carry the Uzumaki Kekei Genkai. I am prepared and know my place as your wife and future matriarch of the clan. Naruto frowned. He didn't expect her to think of the pregnancy as all business. Sure, he wanted to bring the Uzumaki back, but only if Mei herself wanted to as well. He would never force her to have children with him, he just couldn't. He grabbed a hold of both of her hands and saw her look at him curiously. Mei, I don't want you to think that us having children is just to carry on the line or anything. I want to bring the clan back, but I also want to be able to love and care for my children along with my wife. You don't seriously think that's the only reason to have children, right? Mei looked surprised for a moment but then smiled, squeezing his hands with her own slender ones. Of course, Naruto, I just wanted to let you know that I am prepared to have many children with you. I'm not even doing it for the clan, really. I am doing it because I love you and too want to have your children. I've wanted kids for quite some time now. I never thought for a second though that I would meet you and we would bring the clan back together. I love you and I will love our children with equal passion. There is nothing more that I want than to be a mother married to you with our little Uzumaki running through the house. It would be like a dream come true. Naruto had tears in his eyes after hearing that. He had no idea she wanted to have children so bad. She wanted his children. He brought her into a tight embrace she was quite happy to receive, returning it back to him. I am so happy that I have found you. I love you so much. She gently stroked his hair as he cried into her shoulder, glad they were able to talk about their future together. I love you too, Naruto-koi. After calming down from their emotional embrace, the two decided to lie down on their backs and watch the clouds. "So Naruto, where would you like to have our wedding?" Mei turned to face him as he looked at her, their hands intertwined as they lay there. Naruto looked like he was thinking, but then he just started smiling. "It doesn't matter where we get married, Mei, just as long as you're happy." Mei smiled. It was the answer she had expected from Naruto. "I was deciding that we could maybe go to Uzumaki." Naruto's eyes widened. "Uzumaki? Why go there, Mayheim?" She sighed. "Why not, Naruto? We are Uzumaki and we should marry in Uzumaki, don't you think? We could follow all the old traditions and customs, we can wear our Yuzu uniforms, walk the whirlpool fields, or even take a dive to see the reefs off the coast. Uzumaki is such a wonderful place, Naruto. The way you describe it, I just want to go and live there," Naruto joked, while in reality he really did want to live there. "I agree, maybe someday we can." They looked at each other, just smiling at their dreams of grandeur. "Mei, can you tell me about the history of Yuzu? I know you've told me some already, but you really have left out most of the recent events." Mei looked a bit downtrodden before perking up. For Naruto's sake, he deserved to know the history. "Alright Naruto, where would you like me to begin?" Naruto thought about it for a second. "How about the time when my mother was born, around 35 years ago?" Mei looked up at the sky, trying to bring up her limited knowledge on the Uzumaki past. Well, 35 years ago, tensions between Kiri and Yuzu spilled over into a war between the two nations. The boundary disputes and the lack of cohesion between the bordering countries led them to have great anger towards one another. Really, the Uzumaki were so different from the mainland that we really did need our own island country. We were our own culture, but Kiri would not listen to reason. Naruto frowned, wondering if Yuzu was really worth a war between the two countries. While Kiri had numbers on their side, no one in their right mind underestimated our clan with the Kekei Genkai. The Uzumaki were a small clan of pure blood surrounded by dozens of branch families that filled our population and were the real working class. The relationship between the branches and the head family were strained at best. At times, all the branch could be considered were glorified slaves, used only to work and serve the head family and in desperation reproduction. When the Uzumaki went to war, so did the branch families. Naruto continued to listen, enraptured by the history. "Wait Mei, if the branch weren't true Uzumaki, that meant they didn't have the bloodline, right?" Mei nodded. "But how were they able to help us win if they didn't have a bloodline to help them?" "Well Naruto, we both know that bloodlines only enhance ninja, they do not make the shinobi. While it is true the branches rarely had anyone with the bloodline, they were skilled shinobi and weapon users. Their primary weapons were a bit old-fashioned for the current times, often consisting of long spears and shields or even short swords. The Uzumaki went to war with our usual pride and confidence, some even boasting that Kiri would fall within 3 days, just in time for hurricane season. Thinking back, they were fools. It was the one time that Uzumaki pride got in the way of our better judgment, but that quality wasn't our downfall, stubbornness was." "Stubbornness?" Naruto questioned, to which Mei just nodded. "Yes Naruto, the war at first went well for the Uzumaki. Kiri was first met on our home turf. They had been preparing an invasion fleet with not only shinobi but the daimyo's soldiers as well. We met them on eastern coast of Yuzu country. The whirlpools were always harsh to sea vessels, even the Uzumaki, but we always knew just the right way to ride the storm. Kiri was not so lucky. Their ships appeared to sail through clear skies and safe seas the entire voyage, while in reality the entire fleet was under an illusion by some of our best genjutsu masters. By the time they realized that they were in a trap, half their fleet had been sunk and the rest was under attack by the Uzumaki. They never stood a chance. For all intents and purposes, the war should have been over right there, but then came. Naruto was on the edge of his seat now. Who was he? Who came Mei? She shook in silent anger for a few moments before whispering his name. Madara Uchiha. Naruto was shocked. Madara Uchiha was the one who stopped the Uzumaki? What, but how? Why? May calmed herself and took a deep breath. Soon after the war started, Madara had apparently entered Kiri after drifting throughout the world after being rejected from his clan during the time of the first Hokage. Upon arriving in Water Country, he took advantage of the fact that Kiri had prepared for war and left the capital defenseless. Gathering a few loyal followers, he launched an attack and killed the second Mizukage. After the coup, he proclaimed himself the third Mizukage and immediately led what was left of the army and hit the Uzumaki vanguard. She slammed her fists together to give off the effect of the two armies attacking one another. Naruto could only imagine the battle in his mind. Our clan leader dueled Madara in close combat, Kekii Genkai versus Kekii Genkai. In the end, our leader was struck down, but it was not enough to demoralize Uzumaki. You can take down our commander, but all we'll do is get angry, and that makes us stubborn. The battle continued until that bastard tried his newest dojutsu ability, the ability to transport people or objects to another time and space. Naruto saw where she was heading with this. The thought alone scared him. He teleported the entire army? May just nodded solemnly. Yes, I don't know how he did it or if that really is how he did it, but what happened is in history. Madara Uchiha defeated the vanguard and laid siege to Uzumaki for 5 years. 5 years? Naruto was amazed by the amount. Yes, that is where our stubbornness led to our downfall. In reality, we really had no other choice. Madara did not offer an armistice or chance to surrender. We had to fight. The siege brought about the creation of what could very well be the most powerful jutsu ever created by the Uzumaki clan. The ability or knowledge of how to create it has been lost over the years since. The greatest jutsu ever? What was it called? May smiled a bit, pride of their clan getting the better of her. Great Uzumaki Vortex. It is sometimes referred to as the Great Funnel Cloud, or the Landlocked Whirlpool. It is described as a giant vortex or tornado that envelopes an area of land. This technique was erected around the entire island of Yuzu and stretched high into the sky, higher than any ninja could ever hope to reach. We are unsure of the exact use of the jutsu other than the strong wind that it is presumed to be made of. It was surely a difficult obstacle to get around from the Kiri perspective. The jutsu was extremely tiring for those using it, however, and I believe it was rumored that the entire Uzumaki clan save the branch families had to work together to maintain it. How they were able to do it is unknown, but the siege was a bloody affair for both sides. Eventually though, the Uzumaki could no longer hold off the innumerable Kiri forces and they were defeated. They both frowned at that. Even though it had already happened, they were still sad to hear it. We were forced to make reparations that we could never truly pay or become part of Kiri. Our surviving clansmen were faced with the unthinkable: give up our independence officially or become the economic slaves of the prosperous Kiri. Either way, we lose. Naruto finished for her, his fist shaking in anger. That we did. Our elders eventually settled for becoming part of Kiri. That was the end of Uzumaki as an independent country and the end of the Uzumaki clan. Enticed by both the weakness of the head clan and the past atrocities committed by the Uzumaki, the branches left immediately for a better life that was being offered in Kiri. The Uzumaki did their best to remain on their home soil, but eventually everyone realized it was a lost cause and our clan fragmented, drifting apart into what it is now. Your mother went to Konoha as a bright young teenager, I suppose. She must have been one of the last to leave the home country pending her age. I on the other hand was taken by my father, who was from the head family, and we left with mother's branch who came to Kiri. Since that day, we rarely spoke of the past that I have little memory of and called ourselves Terumi, my mother's branch name. I was blessed and cursed when I was given the gene for our bloodline, but now that I have met you, I know that it truly was the best blessing I could have received. Naruto smiled and leaned in to kiss May, who happily met him halfway. The Uzumaki clan may no longer be, but these two were definitely prepared to bring it back. Kirigakure, streets. The couple walked along with each other towards the estate, the day coming near to a close. The passers-by would look and clap for the two. The relationship was known everywhere because of either Shinobi's status. A more daring girls would whistle for Naruto, and Mei looked about ready to launch a lava bullet in each of their faces. Now, Mayheim. They don't mean dash, Mei interrupted him, a twisted smile on her face. Nara toshed up before I kill you. Naruto just ducked his head down. Yes, Mayheim. Mei smirked. Good boy. She patted him on the head for good measure before turning her attention back to where the girls were, only to find a staggering Ao come towards them on the street. He was mangled and bloodied, his uniform was torn to shreds and his face was mangled, but it was still Ao. Senpai. Both shinobi ran up to him right before he collapsed onto the ground, deftly caught by Naruto, who laid him gently onto the ground. The man attempted to salute the Mizukage but ended up coughing more blood onto himself, almost choking him. What happened to you, Ao? The man attempted to form words but only gurgled up more fluids. Naruto and Mei both knew he didn't have long. Mei, I'll take him to the hospital. You should head to the Mizukage suite and coordinate the ninja corp. We have to find his unit and who did this to him. Mei nodded and watched as Naruto disappeared in a vortex of water before she herself left the scene as well. Kirigakure, hospital, recovery room. At the moment, Naruto sat next to a bed where the occupant was hooked up to way too many machines for the young blonde to count. He was unsure whether the older man would make it or not, but he wasn't ready to give up on him yet. As soon as Mei called for him, Naruto would go find who did this and make them pay. Who would do this? Ao is one of the best ninja from Kiri, and he isn't even a swordsman. Whoever they were, though, they seemed to really want to get his Byakugan away from him. Perhaps it was dash. Naruto was awoken from his thoughts by a low gurgle and saw Ao trying to get up. He was quickly stopped by Naruto. Ao senpai, you can't move yet, you're hurt very badly and you need rest. Don't worry about those guys who did this to you, we'll get them. I promise. Ao didn't seem satisfied, he kept grasping for something and made motions in the air with his hands, confusing Naruto. What is it? Do you want to write something? Ao attempted to smile and nodded. Naruto got up and found a piece of paper and pencil nearby, handing them to the man. While his ability to write with his wounds was subpar, he was able to scribble some writing onto the parchment and shakily gave it back to Naruto. The swordsman took it and read the 2 words scrawled onto the message. His hands began to shake from the myriad of emotions running through him. The paper fell to the ground and in a flash Naruto had left the hospital, heading straight for home to get his equipment ready. Ao fell back into his pillow and felt a rush of sedatives push him into a deep slumber. The note lay untouched on the ground. The 2 words were an act of treason, they were an act of war, they had Naruto on a warpath. Konoharut, Kirigakure, Mizukage suite. The suite was in a flurry of activity. Mei summoned squad after squad of shinobi, all receiving their orders and disappearing right before the next group came in. The village was to be searched and the surrounding islands scoured for traces of Ao's team and the possible perpetrators of the crime. Kiri was taking no chances. These people have killed some of my own, I will hunt them down like dogs. Naruto appeared in front of an angry and anxious Mei. She looked ready to lash out at anything that crossed paths with her the wrong way. He had on his armor and mask, the broadsword fitted tightly to his back and his equipment all stowaway in his pouches and scrolls. I know who did this, I'm going to go confront the source now. Mizukage-sama. Mei gave her attention to Naruto, her eyes gleaming with anger and anticipation. Who did this, Naruto? Naruto growled. Root. He hissed out the name like it was poison, Mei also visibly recoiling at it. You mean Konoha is involved? Naruto shook his head negatively. I highly doubt Bachan even knows about this. Danzo operates in the dark with his operations. If there is anyone to blame, it is him and him alone, and I'm going to go bring him to justice. Mei stared into Naruto's veiled eyes, her leadership skills taking over. No, it's too risky. He is on his home turf in Fire Country, attack him and all of Konoha will be breathing down your neck. We will eliminate his lackeys first, then proceed with diplomatic dash. Naruto slammed his fist down onto the desk, cracking its wooden frame. Those monsters killed a whole squad and left Ao senpai permanently crippled. I'm going to kill those bastards. Danzo won't stop no matter what we do, and Konoha and Tsunade are powerless to stop him even if they wanted to. Mei glared at her fiancé. He was not making this any easier on her. I understand that, but there is nothing we can do, Naruto. Naruto scoffed and walked towards the door, fed up with the politics and niceties of being a Kage. I'm going, you'll thank me soon enough. Before Mei could utter another word, Naruto disappeared in a yellow flash. Her arm was outstretched towards the door, desperately trying to pull him back to her. She lowered the arm after a few long moments, her face tilted towards the floor. Salty tears fell down her cheeks as she broke down. Her fiancé truly had sent himself into the lion's den, and he may not be able to escape this time around. Naruto, Konoha Forest, 5 miles north from Konoha. Naruto appeared at a marked tree, his Hiraishin seal on it flashed for a moment before disappearing again, leaving Naruto alone in a dark forest. Alright Fox, it's time we use your sensing abilities to help me find them. What makes you think they are anywhere near here? Shouldn't they be back around Kiri? No, once Root gets the job done they always return right back to their master, Danzo. They act like dogs trying to appease their owner by following orders, pitiful. It doesn't matter anymore though, as soon as I find them there will be no more Root or Danzo. Whatever, just start heading to Konoha while I try and pinpoint their location. Naruto got his bearings and broke out into a run, heading straight for his old hometown. A few minutes later, Naruto heard a grunt in the back of his mind and heard Kyubi point out the direction in which he had to go. Moving out at speeds most would have found impossible, Naruto caught sight of 4 robed figures moving quickly through the underbrush. They were fast approaching Konoha. He spied them and saw the telltale ANBU masks and white robes of the Black Ops in Konoha. They were covered in blood head to toe. Sir, the mission was a success. One of the subordinates asked the leading figure. Yes it was, leader told us to kill the hunter squad and leave one alive, for what reason though I don't know. Naruto growled, so they left Ao alive on purpose. We will just have to trust Leader Sama. Another one of them added. They all silently agreed with the man. Upon arriving near the gates, the 4 got off the main road and went to what seemed to be just more bushes and grass. The leader held up a hand sign and the image of the grass disappeared to be replaced with a small manhole, large enough for only one person to fit at one time. Naruto watched them all enter the base, taking note of the location for future use. Once the last one had gone underground, Naruto quickly dropped from his hiding spot and moved to the manhole. He uncovered it and slapped his bare hand on the ground next to the exit. A small seal appeared and it gave a quick exit to Naruto should he need one. Entering the base, Naruto had officially infiltrated the hornet's nest. Konoha, underground caverns, Root Base. Naruto stalked the halls, keeping out of sight and trying his best to stick to the shadows. Fortunately, the only thing lighting the place were some strategically placed torches and candles, allowing Naruto to easily slide along the sides of the walls under the cover of darkness once he shut off the lights. Coming across the first door he found, he read the sign over it and smiled. Living quarters, Block A. Naruto psyched himself before opening the door. He snuck in and saw evenly spaced bunk beds with all the operatives either sleeping or missing entirely. Creating a few dozen shadow clones, Naruto got to work annihilating the Root forces, one member at a time. He moved from room to room. He was the shadow on the wall that no one thought to look to, the one man out of place. By the time any Root members could realize what was going on, they were dead on their feet. The lucky ones were killed while they slept. Simple slits to the throat were all they received. Upon arriving at 2 double doors labeled Mess Hall, Naruto stood with his clones and kicked the door down, arriving to a sparsely inhabited gymnasium-sized room. The only people there other than him were none other than Hyo and his squad. They all looked towards him with what was surely surprise under their masks. Kiri? What the hell are they? One of them began to question Naruto's arrival before a kunai was launched and a flash appeared. His squad members were horrified as they saw his head hit the floor. Naruto stood with his broadsword out, facing the Root soldiers with a rage that few had ever seen him have. He was going to kill every single one of them no matter what it took. You die now, root scum! Naruto and his clones charged, quickly overwhelming Hyo and his squad. The Konoha shinobi fought bravely but were eventually cut down by the sheer amount of enemies attacking them. Hyo was the last one remaining. He was bloody and beaten, his tanto broken in two and his mask broken in half, and he watched Naruto make his way towards him, ready to execute the root operative. Danzo-sama, help! Naruto continued to make his way towards the panicking man before he saw the door open directly in front of him. Hyo's back was to it. The Anbu turned around and saw his leader, Danzo, standing in the doorway glaring at Naruto. Yes, Danzo-sama will defeat him. Good job, Hyo, you have fulfilled your duty. Hyo's eyes widened when he heard those words and turned around only to see a sword come around towards his neck. Naruto decapitated the man, leaving nothing but shock on the betrayed man's face. Hyo's last thoughts were on his leader, the man he had put all his life and loyalty into. Danzo-sama, you betrayed us all. Hello, Nine Tails. Naruto growled, taking a step closer to the older man. Danzo held his ground, clearly unfazed by the threatening demeanor that Naruto was showing. Danzoyu will pay for what you have done. Danzo smiled, he actually almost felt like laughing. I have done nothing wrong, everything that has been done has been for the betterment of Konoha. If you would have remained in your place like you should have, you would have played a part in that as well. Naruto scoffed, no way would he serve him. I would never have followed your orders, Danzo. Danzo just shook his head, disappointed at the boy. You say that, but what if I could make it so you didn't have a choice? Naruto's eyes widened, what did he mean? No time to find out, I have to get him before he tries something. Naruto charged towards Danzo, closing the distance between them in seconds. Suddenly, the blonde stopped running, his entire body was shaking and his pupils became dilated. What is this? A genjutsu? I can't move my body now then. Bow Nine Tails. Naruto's body slowly moved to a kneeling position, a Sharingan briefly flashed in each of Naruto's pupils before disappearing. He had fallen under Danzo's mind control, Shursue's Sharingan ability. I am at your service, Danzo-sama. Danzo smirked, the boy had fallen right into his trap. He had lured Naruto here, knowing that he would be driven by revenge to come and stop him. The boy's judgment became clouded and Danzo acted on it. Slowly pulling out one of his kunai, Danzo stalked towards Naruto slowly, he wanted to savor this moment for the rest of his life. That's a good boy, now hold still you little runt. If Konoha cannot control the Nine Tails completely, then I will make sure no one can have its power. Danzo stalked towards Naruto's kneeling form, his victorious smirk could grow no wider than it was now. Naruto was helpless to just watch the older man approach with the small dagger, intending to end his life. Crap, this is bad. I can still think but I can't influence my body's reactions. I have to think of a way out and quick. Remember our training in Kyumo, Naruto. Just like Killer Bee and Yujito taught you, a Jinchuriki is impervious to genjutsu of any kind as long as the tailed beast and container are in sync. Naruto wanted to slap his forehead in stupidity, how could he forget that lesson? Alright Kyubi, disrupt my chakra, I have to move now. Kyubi grunted in acknowledgement and quickly undid the bonds that held Naruto's conscience down. The boy had his body back. The blonde pretended to still be under his control until the last second. Danzo now stood directly in front of him poised to strike. Goodbye Nine Tails. Danzo plunged his dagger towards Naruto's unmoving neck, but his eye widened when the boy grabbed his wrist and with his immense strength twisted, breaking that wrist easily. Jumping away from Naruto and nursing his broken hand, the older man's elation had changed to seething anger. He glared at Naruto who was glaring right back at him, his broadsword was now in his hands again. Damn old bones, can't even handle a damn brat's strength, it has to be on par with Tsunade's. I may have to retreat. He was unable to continue when he noticed Naruto throw something at him. Sifting through his knowledge, his eyes widened again at the outcome. The Yandame's kunai? A flash appeared in front of Danzo and he was sliced in half, a clean horizontal cut right across his abdomen. Naruto watched as the body fell to the ground and Danzo uttered his last breath, the last words from the monster of Konoha. Not bad for a demon. Naruto saw his eye close and turned around to leave, finished with this place. Naruto's eyes widened when he felt a presence behind him and looked to see Danzo. He was standing there in front of the Kiri ninja, looking very annoyed at the outcome of that event. Well, I had hoped to avoid confrontation, but it appears I have no choice. Naruto growled. Damn right you don't have a choice, I'm going to make you pay. Danzo frowned, glaring at Naruto. You continue to say that, yet I don't see any results. I am curious however as to how you were able to escape my genjutsu. It is a very powerful illusion of the Uchiha. All you need to know is that a Jinchuriki is never affected by a genjutsu, no matter how powerful it is. Now enough talk, it's time to finish this. Danzo smiled, slowly undoing his bandages around his eye first before moving on to his arm. I have been saving these for just the occasion. I am ready to finally use the powers that I have garnered for myself. It is time I force you to fight for this village, whether you wish to or not. Naruto watched as the man undid his bindings and revealed a Sharingan eye and an arm covered by a gauntlet. Huh, and here I always thought you were a cripple. How long have you been holding this secret? Danzo scoffed. Long enough. I have been saving these abilities for when I thought I would need them against you. Please do not disappoint me, runt. We'll see who you are calling a runt when this is over. Danzo chuckled, flexing his arms and slowly revealing the covered arm. When this is over, you will be calling me Danzo-sama. Naruto snarled and charged the man. Danzo began going through hand signs with both of his arms. Naruto's eyes widened in wonder when he saw Danzo's other arm. It was covered in Sharingans. What the hell did he do to himself? I count 10 Sharingan total, 9 eyes are open and 1 is closed. Possibly he already used it for a technique we didn't catch. It might have been what had saved him from that blade attack. Possibly. Wind release, vacuum sphere. Naruto saw him open his mouth and shoot a number of small blasts straight at him, leaving him little room to dodge. Thinking quickly, Naruto stopped running and held up his large sword in front of himself. It almost completely covered the entire front of his body. Hiding won't do you any good. Naruto felt the bullets impact the sword but smiled as he watched the bullets disappear and a surge of chakra flow through his system. His sword's containment seals had done it again. Who needs a fancy sword like the others when Naruto knows sealing, right? Interesting seal. Danzo analyzed the defensive move, silently impressed with Naruto's sealing ability. You haven't seen anything yet. Naruto went through a set of hand signs before slamming his palm onto the ground and pulling upwards. As if he was holding a magnet to metal, a rock column closely followed the moving hand out of the ground and it stayed in front of Naruto. Earth release, rock blizzard. With a violent kick, Naruto sent dozens of large pieces of sharpened rocks at Danzo, who deftly dodged them with his speed. Moving quickly, the Kiri swordsman launched himself at Danzo and thrust his sword at him again and again. Each time it was dodged by Danzo. Come on boy, is that really all you have? Naruto growled and shot a lava bullet at Danzo, who moved to avoid it only to be met with a pained feeling in his shoulder. Looking towards his left arm, Danzo realized his folly too late to stop Naruto's sword from piercing through his body again, leaving him without an arm. Naruto smirked in victory but stopped smiling when he saw the Danzo in front of him disappear. He turned around to see Danzo going through more hand signs. Wind release, vacuum wave. Naruto moved to put up his sword but was stopped when Danzo pulled back his arm, and then the blonde saw it. A wire had wrapped itself around his sword. Giving a strong tug, Danzo took the sword right out of the swordsman's hand. It fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Having nothing to protect him against the wind, Naruto moved to one of the supporting pillars in the middle of the dining hall and hid behind one. The wind blade slashed right through them, making the roof dangerously shake from the weakening strength of the structure. Naruto luckily was able to duck from the blades, already having predicted the cover wouldn't last. Spying his sword on the ground, Naruto took out 2 of his father's kunai and charged for it. Danzo was running towards him, trying to intercept. Meeting Naruto before he could grab the sword, Danzo went to reach for it but was burned when he attempted to grab it. The attack momentarily stunned him. A moment was all Naruto needed. In a second, Naruto had effortlessly kicked his sword into the air and threw his two kunai into either of Danzo's shoulders, causing the man to cry out in agony. His sword quickly fell due to gravity and Naruto grabbed it immediately before slicing off Danzo's left arm. A full minute had gone by in the fight so far. Damazanaji will no longer work. Naruto waited for another apparition to take Danzo's place, but when he saw nothing appearing he smiled. Danzo was not happy, he was lightly panting and angered over the result of losing an arm to Naruto. Well, that worked out. This isn't over yet. Nine Tails. Danzo's remaining arm began to sprout a growth. It slowly took the form of a tree. From that tree, hundreds of sharpened spikes launched at Naruto, who was forced to use a technique to get away from them all. Lava release. Lava wall. Naruto stomped his foot onto the ground and a large wall of molten rock appeared in front of him, blocking the enemy attack's path. The spikes plunged straight into the lava and were set on fire. The tree slowly melted away. Lava, I always knew I should have kidnapped him the day he was born from that wretched woman. Unfortunately for both combatants, the lava wall also affected the structural support and destroyed a few more pillars keeping the room up. There were only a few structural pillars remaining and they were between the two combatants. One of them happened to be growing a chakra tail while the other glared. It's time to finish this. Naruto's voice deepened and his features became more announced on his face, allowing Danzo to envision the true demon inside of him. I will destroy you if I must. Nine Tails, I'd like to see you try. Naruto held out a hand and brought his sword to him. It flew through the air and was grabbed by the palm of his hand. Chakra flow, you can do many things with it. Naruto explained and Danzo scowled. I don't need a damn lesson on it, I'm more experienced than you will ever be. Naruto just shrugged and charged towards the man who in turn charged him. Both hurtled straight for the other. Danzo took out one of his kunai and blew a gust of wind on it. A low whine or gust could be heard emanating from it. The two brought their weapons together in the middle of the room. A loud clack could be heard as the two tried to snuff out the other in their sword battle. Naruto smirked as he began to push Danzo back. The wind chakra being absorbed by the sword made the root commander's attack useless. Danzo scowled again. He backed away and went through hand signs while Naruto held up his hand and began to form chakra. Wind release. Vacuum serial wave. Massive Rasengan. Naruto threw himself towards Danzo with the immense Rasengan in front of him, the wind blades disrupting but not stopping the large, blue sphere. Danzo bit his tongue in annoyance and dodged the attack just barely. A part of his robe was ripped away from the blast. Unfortunately, the attack was the final blow for the underground base and the roof began to fall on top of them, leaving them little time to think of a plan. Naruto began to go through hand signs and a shadow clone popped into existence before the clone began to go through hand signs as well. The combo was a first for Naruto. He had just thought up the idea from his past fighting. Lava release. Lava wall. Water release. Great waterfall technique. As the circular dome came into being around the two, the water immediately cooled the volatile lava into a solidified ash that was nigh unbreakable. Danzo angrily and if he would admit to it, jealously watched the Uzumaki Kekei Genkai in action and angered he could not do the same to save himself. Dodging the collapsing roof pieces, Danzo used his wind techniques to destroy the larger pieces and slowly began to jump towards the moonlight that shone through the cracks in the surface. Konoha, Hokage office. Tsunade sat in her office, working late to finish up the stupid paperwork she was forced to do as Hokage. I wish Naruto hadn't have left, I could have given him this job. Tsunade stopped writing for a moment and went into thought. She looked up at the ceiling. Naruto had yet to come for his monthly visit and Tsunade was getting increasingly antsy for him to come back home, if only for a little while. Sakura and the others were also very excited after receiving the news that he would be coming to visit soon. Everyone had their hopes up. Her thoughts were interrupted when Shizune came bursting in through the door with a number of jounin, including Kakashi. Hokage-sama, a large area of ground right outside of Konoha has just collapsed onto itself. There have also been scattered reports of two shinobi fighting each other there. Tsunade's eyes widened. Fighting? She turned serious immediately, her Hokage leadership ability coming into play. Let's go then, we have to stop it before it reaches Konoha. Yes ma'am. Konoha, Forest, Danzo, Nine Tails. The two combatants had escaped from the underground confines and now stood on the cracked and broken surface of the earth nearby, charging at one another. Naruto now had two tails and Danzo's arm was furiously growing more and more spikes and tree growth, the Sharingan eyes flaring and spinning. Sending out multiple chakra arms, Naruto pinned Danzo in place while he formed a Rasengan in his palm. The color was a deep vermilion. Nine Tails Rasengan. Danzo smirked even as he was being crushed to death. You won't win that easily, boy. Naruto watched in satisfaction as Danzo was obliterated by a combination of his chakra hands squeezing the man and his Rasengan ripping into his chest cavity. Blood spattered everywhere. Naruto felt much of it land on his face, to which he slowly licked it with his tongue, the bloodlust feeling so good. Ha, a petty cretin like you could never kill me with that horrible replication of the Yondame's jutsu. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned around into a fist. He was knocked back onto the ground and was stopped by a seal that spread across his body, freezing his muscles and stopping his counterattack. Danzo was upon him. Going through the appropriate hand signs, Danzo gathered air into his mouth and looked down at the shocked Naruto. He was desperately trying to free himself of the seal. It would never work. Wind release, vacuum great sphere. At point-blank range, it is impossible for even the Kyuubi to heal this. Danzo, stop! Before he had time to react, a punch had been sent right into his cheek from the side, effectively stopping his jutsu from continuing. Looking to the source of the intrusion, he found none other than the Hokage of Konoha. Tsunade was panting slightly and was flushed with anger. What the hell are you? Danzo was interrupted when a primal roar came from something to his right. It also drew Tsunade's attention there as well. Naruto was releasing a large amount of chakra and slowly getting up from his prone position, the seals slowly receding from his body. The Konoha ninja's eyes widened. My god, how is this boy able to release so much of the Kyuubi's power? He should be going insane with bloodlust. Naruto, that really you? RWOHHH. Breaking the seal, Naruto turned his demonic eyes towards a slightly unnerved Danzo and flashed from their view only to appear right in front of the hobbled man. Die! Naruto clawed the man repeatedly, blood shot out of his chest from the deep gashes Naruto was creating. Tsunade was horrified. What had led Naruto to do something so sinister? Naruto, stop! Tsunade started to run towards him with tears in her eyes. The other Jounin had arrived and were visibly repulsed by the Kyuubi container's presence. Kakashi overlooked the battlefield and shook his head grimly as he watched Tsunade run towards Naruto. That's dangerous. What the hell are you doing? Stopping from his onslaught on Danzo for a moment, Naruto got up from the man and turned around to see Tsunade running towards him, her fear evident from her face. Naruto frowned. Even though his anger had been greatly enhanced by Kyuubi's chakra flowing through him, he could still control himself while in this form. In fact, thanks to my own training and Killer Bee's advice, I can now transform into the 8th tail state before I lose control by going any farther. Naruto quickly reverted his transformation back to his normal self and was tackled by Tsunade just as the last of the red/orange chakra dissipated. Naruto, what are you doing here? Please don't transform again. Naruto was shocked as Tsunade childishly punched his chest with her fists, sobbing for him to never transform again. Smiling softly, he placed his arms around his Bachan and hugged her tightly to his chest. It's alright Bachan, I'm Naruto was cut off when a wet crunching sound was heard. Tsunade looked up into Naruto's widened eyes. Naruto? Tsunade tried to get a response from the now unmoving boy, but her eyes widened in fear when she saw blood seep out of his open mouth, his face of surprise. Die Nine Tails, and with that, Danzo fell backwards onto the hard ground, his kunai still lodged in the back of Naruto's chest cavity. His breathing labored, he knew that he would not have much more time. Naruto no. Tsunade began to sob as Naruto's weight fell onto her, his eyes gently closing as he embraced the overwhelming urge to sleep. Shizune immediately appeared and they both went to work while Naruto was lying on the ground, blood pouring out of his back. "We need to stabilize him, his lung and kidney have been punctured," Shizune warned. Tsunade's illuminated hands moved up and down Naruto's body, trying to sift through where to heal first. "The treatment isn't working, that bastard." Tsunade looked up from Naruto to where Danzo was, but her eyes widened when there was no body. "Kakashi, find Danzo, don't let him escape." Kakashi's eyes were actually tearing up, he couldn't believe that Danzo would go so low as to hit Naruto while his back was turned. "I can't lose Naruto, he is my last hope of redemption." "Yes ma'am." The silver-haired man disappeared, he was on a manhunt for the murderer of one of the most important people in the ninja world. "Come on Naruto, wake up for Bachan." Tsunade was crying desperately, actually praying that Kyubi would help her godson come back to life. "We're losing him." Tsunade-sama, the two medics working to save Naruto's life did not notice the appearance of the majority of the Rookie 12, all coming to see the big commotion. Sakura pushed her way through the circle of Jounin to see what the commotion was, the panic in her teacher's voice terrified her. Finally getting through to where Tsunade and Shizune were, Sakura's eyes widened and tears were already forming. Naruto lay motionless in a pool of blood, his blood. "Oh my god Naruto!" Tsunade looked up to see her pink-haired apprentice looking at the blonde with sheer terror in her eyes. The medic glared at her. "Get a grip Sakura and help us, because if you don't, he may really die." Awaking from her stupor, Sakura knelt down next to her teacher and began to heal Naruto's large wound but found it not working. "We already tried Sakura." Danzo laced his kunai with poison. "It is preventing our medical jutsu from repairing his cells, we can't even stop the bleeding." Sakura's eyes widened again, how were they supposed to save him? Rain began to fall as everyone began to realize the vibe that Naruto really was dying. It soaked all the shinobi there, but no one gave it a second thought, all too entranced by the boy the three most powerful medics Konoha had ever seen were desperately trying to save. Even those shinobi with grudges against Kyubi were at a loss when it came to feeling any anger towards Naruto. This showed that he was no different, that he could be struck down just as easily as any of them could be. "Damn it, don't you go Naruto, don't leave." Sakura began to pound her fist into Naruto's chest as his heart stopped beating, her desperation evident in her rescue attempt. The hero was dying and no one could stop it. Konoha Hospital. 1 week later Naruto awoke to a lot off-white. Feeling deja vu all over again from his last hospital visit, Naruto calmed himself and tried looking left this time again. He saw nothing but more of his room and a white door that lead out to the hallway. Looking in front, he saw many get-well cards and balloons on a table waiting for him to look at. He absently wondered how long he had been here. Lastly, he turned to his right only to be assaulted by a fist to his face. It sent him flying back into his hospital pillow and he thought that he could see stars. "About time you looked in this direction." Naruto recognized that voice, but it couldn't be her. She was still in Kurite? Mayheim? He croaked out, sounding out her name in genuine disbelief. It was her. Inclining his head slowly to look in the right direction, he was met with the narrowed eyes of one Uzumaki Mei, and she really was angry. Her lips were pursed shut, her eyes were glaring murder. She was standing with her hands on her hips, and there was little of the usual shine that she would radiate when he was near. Naruto gulped. He knew that he had done something bad and now he was going to pay for it. "I'm not the type of woman to cry when her fiancé is injured, nor the type to sob when she was disobeyed by her most loyal ninja just for the sake of revenge." But Mei lost her anger and looked down, her bangs not allowing him to see her face. "You made me into that type of woman with this stunt." Naruto's eyes widened when Mei tackled him in bed, her arms wrapped around his neck and her lips over his. The kiss was a hungry one, but it was also to reassure Mei that he was still there, alive and unharmed. I am such an idiot. I'm so sorry Mei. I should have just listened to you but Mei moved away a bit from his face and had a small, rueful smile on her face. "You were an Uzumaki, I should have expected something like that from you. Just don't do it again." Her eyes darkened and her voice had taken an ominous tone, one that made Naruto truly afraid. Do you understand, Koibito? Yes, Mayheim. She brightened up again and smiled, kissing his cheek and sitting down in a nearby chair. He grabbed her hand and stroked it, glad that she had forgiven him. So how long have I been out? May looked at him, she was frowning from actual amount of time. 1 week, I arrived after the first day. I had set out soon after you had left with no bodyguards, they only would have slowed me down. Naruto was able to afford a smile at that, one that made May smile too. Wow, what a woman. May blushed, looking away from him to try and hide it. It's what any good fiancé would do, right? Naruto chuckled, squeezing her hand to reassure her everything was fine. I know that I would do it in a heartbeat for you. May smirked. And you mean that literally too, don't you? They both laughed at that and settled for just talking with one another the rest of his recovery. It was nice to be reunited once again. Konoha, Deep Forest Danzo was huffing from pain and exertion, his men were carrying him to their destination. Danzo smiled at the thought that his soldiers still remained, save Hyo's squad. He had cast a complex illusion over the base before Naruto had arrived, making him see that he was killing his men when really he was passing through empty rooms. Jinchuriki may not be affected by direct attacks by genjutsu, however they can still be affected by their surroundings being under an illusion. Sir? How much longer until we reach our destination? The large group of root shinobi had been running almost non-stop from Konoha since Danzo's close victory over Naruto. He had immediately gotten away with his men and ordered them to set off for Amigakure. Not much longer, boys, I have been there once. We have much to discuss with them. Otogakure, underground base. Sasuke, how is your individual training going? Well, I hope. A pale man with snake eyes questioned his apprentice, a blue-haired teen with a sword hooked to his belt and the Uchiha symbol on his clothing. Sasuke turned to look at Orochimaru, his tone of voice or looks not changing from their level of neutral. It's going fine. It won't be much longer until you get yours, Orochimaru. Oh. That's good, I can't wait to test the fruits of our labor. The man hissed out, pleased with his vessel's response and progress over the past 3 years. Humph. Whatever. Orochimaru watched the haughty clansman walk towards his room, totally ignoring Orochimaru's wish to continue the admittedly one-sided conversation. Little brat, it may be sooner than you think. Perhaps your friends could try and rescue you again? I would love to see how that Uzumaki has progressed since our last meeting. The snake man licked his lips, already imagining the delectable battle it would be. Konoha Hospital. Tsunade walked the halls of the medical building in Konoha, where the sick could be healed and doctors could be found. She was on her way to check up on Naruto, who had apparently just woken up according to what the nurses told her. She had been afraid he would never wake up from the practical coma he had been in for the past week. With the deadly poison that had run through him, anything was possible. Approaching the correct wing of the hospital, Tsunade spied Sakura in her nurse uniform and waved her over, a smile present on the younger girl's face. Tsunade-sama, did you hear that Naruto woke up? Tsunade nodded her head, confirming it. Yes, in fact I was just about to go visit him right now. Would you like to come along? Sakura glanced at the other nurses before nodding and heading off with Tsunade. Getting closer to the blonde's room, Tsunade and Sakura took notice of strange noises coming from its direction. Looking at one another, they both gave a confused look before walking up to the door. Tsunade set her hand on the door knob and listened in on the door. Now Naruto-koi, I think it's about time we finish this. Somebody might find us. She heard what sounded to be a woman's voice inside the room, her eyes widened. May? I'm almost there, keep going Mayheim, you're the best healer I could have asked for. Hearing Naruto moan out that sentence made her angry, she could tell Sakura was getting angry too. I'm your fiancé, that SMY job, right? Tsunade was at her wit's end and bust down the door, coming across 2 naked people on the bed. Mei was looking at the door with surprise evident on her face but also hint of annoyance tugging at her lips while Naruto looked like a deer caught between headlights. He knew he was done for. Sakura came charging into the room and assessed the situation, or more towards just staring at the two in mid-intercourse and Naruto's large piece. She blushed scarlet while she just stared at it in a trance. Oh ho my! Is that really Naruto's? It's so big. How can she handle that thing? How would I handle that thing? Hello, Mei awkwardly waved at the two, not bothering to cover herself or show any signs of embarrassment. Mei was a very honest woman and not embarrassed by having herself revealed. Naruto on the other hand was futilely trying to cover himself up with a blanket, panicking over the dangerous situation. I can't explain Bachan. Tsunade formed a fist with her hand, stalking towards the two Uzumaki. Oh, I bet you can. Why don't you tell me? Mei raised her voice over Tsunade's, getting both of them out of the hot water. We were just busy restoring the clan. We want a lot of little Uzumaki running around the house. And the sooner we get them, the sooner someone gets grandchildren, right Naruto? Naruto looked up at Mei who had been straddling him during their fun time and smiled, nodding slowly. Nice save Mei. Tsunade's eyes widened and she blushed a bit at the thought of being a grandma, slowly edging away from the two. Sakura had finally passed out from blood loss and lay there in a pool of red, going completely unnoticed. Well then continue with what you were doing. Don't let me stop you. Tsunade smiled big and grabbed Sakura's limp arm before dragging her out with her. As soon as they both had left, the couple looked at one another and wiped the sweat off their brows. That, Naruto started, was a close one. Mei finished before resuming her activity of riding Naruto's member. Konoha Naruto and Mei stood right outside the hospital, fully dressed and done with their playtime. Mei looked at Naruto and Naruto looked at Mei, both smiled. Commence operation, vacation from Kiri. Naruto playfully said, making Mei giggle. Now you can show me around your old town. Naruto, I would love to meet all your friends too. Naruto had a lackluster smile after that. His home village was really not somewhere he wanted to stay for long. How about we go to the Hokage office first, then we can go check out the training grounds for the rookies. Mei nodded and settled for holding Naruto's hand as he guided throughout the city. He pointed out all the landmarks he could to the entranced Mei while walking. She was very curious as to what Konoha was like compared to Kiri. Naruto was glad that no one recognized him any longer. To have any grudges or conflicts come up because of his past with the villagers would not go well with Mei alongside him. Finally arriving at the Hokage Tower, the two shinobi shined to her room and saw her briefing a combined force of Team 8 and 10, their sensei turning towards the new presence immediately. "Ah, look who we have here," Tsunade remarked, causing the rest of the younger shinobi to look behind them to the two Kiri ninja. Naruto stood looking impassively at his old friends with his hands folded across his chest. Mei had a hand on her hip and she was leaning on one leg, trying to assess the people who were her in Naruto's age group. Asuma's cigarette fell out of his mouth after he recognized Naruto and Kurena's eyes widened, furtively glancing in Hinata's direction. Shino immediately made the distinction of Naruto and nodded slightly but was intrigued as to who the woman was. Kiba stared with wide eyes at both Naruto and his fiancée, a beautiful woman that he wanted to be with like a dog in heat. Ino, Shikamaru and Choji all shared their own surprised faces at the two. Shikamaru whispered something about troublesome blondes. Hinata on the other hand was outright blushing at seeing Naruto again, especially after him growing so much in the past 3 years, but she was a bit jealous to see him arrive with a woman. "Naruto, that you?" Kiba asked incredulously, earning a nod from the blonde. Naruto now noticed that the majority of them, all but Hinata, were eyeing his grey Kiri Jounin vest and his forehead protector with the Kiri symbol, obviously needing confirmation he had really changed sides. Hinata just continued to stare at his face, unable to form words at the sight before her. "So you really are a Kiri shinobi?" Shino asked rhetorically, to which Naruto nodded anyway. "Interesting. Wo Naruto, is that your weapon?" Choji pointed out the large greatsword on his back and Naruto nodded again, earning more surprised gasps from the Chunin and Jounin. Kiba walked up to Naruto and leaned in close to Naruto's ear, careful to keep his voice low. "Hey Naruto, is she?" Naruto watched Kiba hike a thumb towards Mei, who was watching their private conversation with silent intrigue and amusement. Naruto smirked, he was going to ruin Kiba's zero chances really quick. "That's my fiancé, idiot." Everyone's eyes widened and Kiba stumbled backwards, just stuttering while pointing his finger back and forth between the two. Mei smiled, moving over to Naruto and looping her arm with his and holding his hand, showing everyone their relationship. Why you're engaged?" "To her?" Kiba all but yelled out, and Naruto and Mei smiled and nodded. Kiba proceeded to faint in complete disbelief. Akamaru knelt down to assist his partner while the others just gave their congratulations. "Nice job Naruto. So troublesome, you always have to make a scene, don't you Naruto? Interesting. Wow, I can't believe Naruto got with an older woman. Nice. Not bad Naruto. What's her name?" Mei stepped forward a bit, taking a small bow to the shinobi gathered. "My name is Mei Uzumaki and I am the 5th Mizukage of Kirigakure." Everyone was surprised to hear that Naruto was marrying an Uzumaki and Kage. "It is good to meet you, Mizukage-sama." All the Konoha shinobi bowed slightly to her in respect. She waved her hand lazily, not keen on the whole respect thing from the Konoha shinobi. "Don't mention it, we just came by so Naruto could show me all his old friends. I must say, you are all very interesting." Everyone began to have small talk with each other while Hinata just smiled sadly. Her Naruto had been taken away from her. "I was too late." She felt pain, tears come to her eyes and looked down to hide them when she felt a reassuring hand on her shoulder from Kurenai, who just gave the girl a rueful smile. "I'm sorry Hinata." Wiping her eyes clear, Hinata smiled at her sensei. "It's fine Kurenai-sensei, he looks happy." In the end, that's all I really want to see, his wonderful smile. "I will not forget what he taught me and I will strive to continue being stronger, even if he will not be by my side." Kurenai smiled at her little rookie. "Hinata, you have grown so much." She glanced at Naruto. "And he is the reason behind it all, even if he probably doesn't know." "Alright, I think you all have your assignments and I think Mei is getting a bit smothered. You may all see Naruto later before he leaves to go back to Kiri." Tsunade ordered the ninja to clear out, to which they did reluctantly, leaving 4 ninja in the room now. Kakashi had just arrived through the window. "Ah, Naruto-yuri up, I see." Kakashi greeted Naruto with a wave. He turned towards Mei. "Mizukage-sama." He inclined his head in an informal bow and received a simple wave of indifference. "Yes, I was thinking that Mei and myself could get some sparring in before we head home. She can't be gone for too long since she is the Mizukage after all." Tsunade nodded, understanding their situation. "Alright, I'm sure you remember where the training grounds are Naruto. Go enjoy yourselves and tell me when you're leaving. I'd like to at least say goodbye." Naruto nodded and grabbed Mei's hand before departing, leaving Kakashi and Tsunade alone. Tsunade swiveled her chair to face the copy ninja and could already tell that his mission was a failure. Kakashi could see what he thought to be disappointment and looked away, shamed that he was unable to find Danzo. "I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but I was unable to find any trace of Danzo. My hounds think he was headed for Amigakure, but I'm not positive. I want to trust them, but the question is why he would want to go to Amigakure." Tsunade finished, remembering rumors of the civil unrest and turmoil in the industrial country. She didn't understand what Danzo wished to gain from going there. "Do you have any idea, Hokage?" Kakashi asked, hoping the older woman would have more knowledge of it than he. Tsunade got up out of her chair and went to the window, looking out at the village with her hands clasped behind her back. Her eyes were squinted in quiet concentration until they relaxed suddenly. Her arms fell limp to her sides. "Not a clue. Konoha Training Grounds, and this is my old stomping grounds, Training Ground 7. That was my old team, Team 7. Naruto had brought Mei to the place where he first became a genin and his team was made official. Naruto took in a breath of fresh air and looked at his surroundings. He noticed that not much at all had changed in the 3 years he had been away. Mei was looking around in wonder and curiosity, glad to finally see Naruto's past and what made him into what was brought before her 3 years ago. Squeezing her hand, Naruto led Mei over to the 3 wooden stumps that served as his punishment for failing the test. Right here is where my sensei tied me up for failure to get the bells that were part of our genin test. I had to go without lunch. It was really horrible. Mei giggled and patted Naruto on the head, kissing his cheek. Ah. My poor little baby, was Kakashi really that mean? Naruto looked at the stump with reverence, receiving an onset of memories of the day. Yeah, he really showed us the distinction of teacher and student, the level we were at and the level we could one day reach. At the time, I really didn't think about any of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to be a cool ninja. What a fool I was. Mei smiled a bit, squeezing his hand. Many children dream of becoming Shinobi, Naruto. Only those with the drive and strength to do so end up becoming part of the ninja corps. You were strong to continue fighting for what you wanted even through adversity. Myself, Mei released his hand and took a few steps forward, looking down at the ground to collect her thoughts. I at first didn't want to be a shinobi. When I heard of the Uzumaki history and just how bloody our clan was known for being, I was afraid to become what my ancestors had. My father, while much more compassionate than most pure-blood fathers, subtly urged me to become a ninja and follow in the footsteps of our family. My mother said to do what I thought was right. She was always on my side when an argument came up. Mei smiled at the memories of her parents, the time for remembrance getting the better of her. Naruto walked to her and slung an arm around her shoulders, bringing her attention to the smiling blonde. Your parents sound like wonderful people, so why did you choose to become the future Mizukage? Naruto asked with a certain haughty undertone added to her esteemed position, earning a playful slap from Mei. The massacres, she finally whispered with a frown, her head bowed down in sorrow. Naruto immediately frowned after hearing her and tightened his grip around her waist, bringing her close to him. I'm sorry, you don't dash. He was cut off by a wave from Mei, who was dead set on telling him the story. No, there is nothing you should be sorry about. It is something dark that happened in Kiri's history that needs to be retold, and I could use someone to talk to about it. It's been so long, but 2-inch Mei's mental barriers began to fall, the horrid memories of what happened to her late family brought to the surface. When Mei fell to her knees in pure anguish, it brought Naruto down as well. He could not bear to see his Hime, the love his life, in so much pain and unable to do anything about it. Softly taking both her trembling hands into his own, he looked into her puffy and teary eyes, intent on letting her know that he was here, that she no longer had to be alone. Mei, I cannot take back what has happened to your family, no matter how much I wish I could. But, I want you to know that you don't have to be alone with the memories. I can be there with you, to shoulder them and take the burden from your shoulders, if it would continue to make you smile. Please Mei, please stop crying. Naruto pleaded with her, trying his best to help her through the new influx of sheer angst and pain that it would make anyone feel. Stifling her quiet sobs, Mei had listened purely enraptured by Naruto's promise. The chance to share the painful memories and stop leaving herself so vulnerable was so appealing. She no longer wanted to feel empty as she walked the halls of her estate. She no longer wanted to feel alone. Maybe that's why I always wanted children, she idly mused. Seeing that her fiancé was waiting for an answer, she squeezed his hands and smiled. Thank you, Naruto-koi. I no longer want to feel lonely like have for so long. To think of the massacre is painful, but as long as you are here beside me, I am willing to tell the tale. Naruto smiled and pulled himself up and without a word, whisked Mei away to a nearby tree and sat down with his back against it. Leading her down, she now lay between his legs with her own arms entangled around Naruto's arms. All right Mei, whenever you are ready. Mei smiled and took a relaxing breath before talking again. Well, I suppose it began when I was 16. At that point, the Uzukiri conflict was a thing of the past and a new, peaceful Mizukage had been elected. His name was Yagura, and he was also the Three-Tails Jinchuriki. Contrary to Konoha, Kiri had no qualms against the Three-Tails, so Yagura was well received. His benevolence led our citizens to become very prosperous, and any remaining problems for the Uzumaki to fit in were taken care of. Yagura respected and sympathized with our clan as well. Naruto was glad to hear that not all villages were against Jinchuriki and happy his clan was well received. Madara had been overthrown from his position as third Mizukage a few years after the war ended. The people had gotten tired of his constant campaigns of war against Konoha and, first Yuzu then the world. The people were ready for peace. After that, everything was peaceful, but it could never stay that way for long. Bitter over his loss of power, Madara played one final trick on Kiri that would haunt the people for the rest of time. The massacres. Naruto said, confirmed by a nod. By using his Sharingan abilities, Madara somehow overcame the mental defenses Yagura had and controlled him as his own, or at least, this is what most conspiracy theorists believe. Sensing the people could be roused with a scapegoat of sorts, Madara began to wreak havoc on the everyday lives of Kiri citizens. Ninja patrols would disappear, boats would be sunk at sea or in harbor, buildings would be destroyed. These little things added up to create much apprehension in the civilians. Having his excuse, the controlled Yagura told everyone that the Uzumaki were the cause of the problems, still angry over the loss of their war against Kiri. Word spread around and eventually all bloodline clans were hated, the members verbally or sometimes physically assaulted whenever they walked the streets. It was madness. Naruto was shocked. How could something like that happen so quickly? But if Yagura was known to be benevolent and a supporter of the Uzumaki, wouldn't someone have gotten suspicious of his new behavior? Mei smiled a bit at Naruto's intuition but shook her head. The clans noticed. It was quite obvious something was off with the Mizukage, but the commoners would not listen to reason. The simpletons had seen all they needed to see so far in Yagura's golden age, that they were willing to listen to anything he said when it came to conflict, and we became the victims of a cruel Uchiha exile. Eventually Yagura came out with the simple rules of engagement: you leave your compound, your safety isn't guaranteed. That's how. Naruto tightened his grip on Mei when she began to shake and sob uncontrollably, her tears strolling down her cheek in droves. That's how Mother died. All she did was go and get groceries, and they cut her down like she was an animal. The Kiri Shinobi were monsters, laughing at her as she tried to crawl back towards the safety of the compound gates. Their kunai and fists were slick with Uzumaki blood, and no one was going to do anything about it. My father told me to wait in my room while he went down and gathered my dying mother in his arms before forever closing the compound gate, not allowing anyone else to leave. She wasn't even able to say goodbye. I wasn't. Damn Madara, damn him. Naruto just held on to her, whispering quiet encouragement into her ear, trying to calm the woman down. I'm so sorry, Mayheim. He petted her hair, moving his hand through the long red locks. I'm sorry. I thought I had gotten over my anger, but I suppose there was still some there. Hee. She tried to joke but just sighed from the sad attempt. Well, after my mother passed away, my father became increasingly irritable towards outsiders and outright refused to meet with anyone to solve the massacre problem. He was afraid of losing someone again. No one could go through it a second time. He began to teach me self-defense and simple shinobi arts. He said it was so I could protect myself. At first, I had been so adamant against it that I threatened to run away, but then he slapped me. Told me that if I continued living in a dream, a pacifist's world in my situation, that I would not live very long. So that was how he convinced me to start on the path of reaching Mizukage. Naruto smiled a bit at that, glad that she had agreed to learn to be a shinobi. Actually, if he had not taught me how to fight, I would not be alive any longer. For when the massacres reached their zenith, Yagura implemented the most bloody and dangerous act of his entire reign, the bloodline purge. This was when the massacre truly became a massacre. The Mizukage organized the Kiri hunter groups and gave them a clan. They were to use any resources necessary to eliminate their particular clan target. At this point, people were finally starting to sympathize with us and many called for an end for the killings, but they went unheard of by Yagura, whose only focus was finishing off the clans. After the Kagaya clan decided to wage war on all of Kiri instead of just the ninja corps, we lost all support from normal citizenry. When the hunter ninja finally arrived at our estate, my father turned into a machine. I had never seen him so focused. He was yelling out orders and taking charge of the entire situation. He led the men against the hunters at the gates while the women and children fled to the lower levels of the estate, well hidden and built since the troubles had first began. Since I had ninja training, I was one of the group's escorts, protecting them from any hunter that might get past. And of course, it was my luck that one did get past. It was the first time I had fought someone else with the intention of killing me, and it was the first time I killed someone. Mei whispered the last sentence quietly, leaving an ominous setting to the conversation. What happened? Naruto was curious. He came out of a wall and elbowed me right in the face. I fell backwards and stumbled into a wall, leaving myself completely vulnerable. Some of the braver escorts came to my aid and battled the hunter, but in the confined space it was no use and they were quickly cut down. I ordered all the women and children to continue to run to the shelter and stood defiant in the hunter's path. I would die before he took a step in their direction. Forming the appropriate hand sign, I remembered my father's lesson on boil release, to which until that day I had too much trouble understanding it and had yet to complete the acidic mist technique. Praying to every god I knew, I launched the mist out of my mouth and in panic turned the acidity up as high as I could manage. At first, the man believed I had done nothing and continued to stalk towards me. Soon after the jutsu had been brought forth, however, was when he finally realized something was wrong. He was losing, dying. I watched with an odd sense of satisfaction as he melted right before my eyes. I will never get his screams nor the way his mask painfully melded with his face, as he just turned into goo. Naruto was a bit unnerved by her way of describing his death, but just accepted the fact that he had done the same to others as well. Following that encounter, I continued on to try and catch up with the others when I felt the earth begin to shake. At first I believed it to be a symptom of the battle above me and continued on, but then I realized that the tremors were getting stronger and stronger the more I approached the underground shelter. Arriving at the door, I found it thrown off of its hinges and began to panic, fearing the worst. Entering the room was the last thing I should have done, but I had to know that there was nothing I could have done. They died? Naruto asked, completely surprised by the outcome. Mei didn't say anything, instead she shifted uncomfortably in his grasp. They had been slaughtered, every single one of them. Not even the children had been spared from that. That bastard Madara Uchiha himself was the one who finished off the Terumi branch. I saw him with my own eyes. He stood in the middle of them all, their faces looking at him with surprise and fear, but he only looked at me with a smile. He said nothing, and the only thing I remembered past that was a flash of his Sharingan activating and nothing. When I awoke, I was in another clan's care, one that had been mysteriously spared, no doubt because of their non-existent bloodline. They told me my entire family had perished in the slaughter and that I was the only one left. From that day onward, I promised myself that I would not ever again show weakness on my part and dove into my personal training of becoming a kunoichi. Since that day I have been alone. You aren't anymore, Mei, you have me, remember? Mei looked up into his blue eyes and smiled, nodding to herself. You're right, I do have you. And in the end, that's all I ever wanted. You were a gift from above. With you my life has been given new meaning and I now have a purpose. The two lovers kissed, sealing their trust in one another. Getting up, Mei stretched out her aching back and turned around to see Naruto doing the same. Feeling her stomach growl, Mei decided to ask Naruto about Konoha's restaurants. So Naruto, there anything good to eat around here? Naruto looked at Mei curiously before tapping his chin in thought. Duh, how could I ever forget? Snapping his fingers, Naruto wickedly smiled and rubbed his hands together, already imagining his wonderful meal of hot, steaming ramen. I know just the place, Mayheim. Konoha, Ichiraka ramen. I am Nichin Tuchi-san. I need 10 bowls of pork ramen and a nice bowl of shrimp ramen for the lady. The couple walked into the stand hand in hand and Naruto was practically dying to have some good Ichiraka ramen. Suddenly a ladle hit him on the head and he fell to the ground with a big bruise on his head, courtesy of a pissed-off Ayam. Mei tended to her fiancé and openly glared at the young woman who looked down at them with little pity. Only Naruto-kun can call me that, so don't even bother. It's because of monsters like you that he left. Naruto slowly stood up with Mei's help, smiled at Ayam, who was finally taking in his appearance. You already forgot what I look like, Ayam Nichin? Her eyes widened when she realized that this was Naruto in the flesh, not some imposter trying to play a mean trick. Leaping over the counter, she brought Naruto into a loving hug and cried into his chest. The action surprised the blonde. Naruto, where did you go? I thought wellest you forever, don't do it again or else you'll get worse than the ladle, understand? Naruto just nodded and patted the crying girl on the back. Hey, just because I live in another village doesn't mean I can't come and visit, in fact. Naruto took off one of his gloves and pressed his hand on the stool he had sat in every time he had eaten there. Ayam was confused until she saw a seal slip off his hand and attach itself to the stool, disappearing soon after. Now I can come visit any time for a nice meal of ramen. How does that sound? It sounds great. Now then, time for that order. Ayam happily went back around the counter and began fixing his food while humming a happy tune. Mei sat down on the stool next to Naruto and smiled at him, making him look at her curiously. What is it, Mei-heim? Ayam looked up from her work, curious as to the affectionate nickname. Oh, nothing, Naruto-kun, just wondering why you were so touchy and feely with Ayam-chan here. Naruto gulped as he noticed the ominous tone of Mei's voice and her widening smile. He was on the fence right now. I used to eat here all the time when I was young. Ayam and her old man became the only family I really had. I can only imagine how much it hurt when I just disappeared on them. You don't have to worry about me being with other girls. You are my only one, Mei-heim, I promise. Mei just kept smiling and took his hand in her own, idly playing with his fingers while waiting for their meal. That's good, because if you did bring another girl home I would have to melt her and your balls. Understood, Naruto? Naruto nodded vigorously and Ayam ducked her head down further behind the counter, now trying to get the thought of dating Naruto out of her mind. Damn it, the good ones are always taken. He may have been a shorty when he was young, but he was always cute, and now that he's back he has a damn girlfriend. TCH, eat up, Naruto. Mei and Naruto received their meals and began to dig in while Ayam just watched them and joined in on their small talk. Hey Ayam, where is the old man? Ayam set her washcloth down and fixed her messy hair, trying to smooth it back down. He's out sick today, probably just felt lazy or something. I'm here alone for right now until we close up at around 4 o'clock. Naruto frowned a bit. He wanted to announce the marriage with him being here, but now it wasn't going to happen. Well, Naruto reached into his bag and fished out a card, a wedding invitation. Mei-heim and I have been working on cards for our wedding, so can you give this to him when he gets back? I'd like both of you to attend, it would be a great honor. Ayam nodded and took the invitation, her brain not yet registering what had just been said. Naruto paid for the two of them and they both left for a little bit more exploring of Konoha before they decided to leave. Yeah, sure, I'll give this to him. Ayam mumbled to herself, placing the invitation on a clean spot on the counter. Getting ready to wash the dishes, her brain finally caught up with Naruto's last words and her mouth started stuttering silent syllables of surprise. Wedding? Konoha, abandoned residential district. Naruto and Mei walked up a series of staircases to get to Naruto's old apartment. He was amazed it still stood. Actually, he really didn't want to come back and reopen the old wounds, but Mei insisted that she see all his past, so here they were. Here we are. This is my old apartment building. I wonder if anything has changed. Naruto said quietly, enraptured by returning to his roots. Looking over to Mei, he saw her staring at the door with horrified eyes, her hands visibly shaking. Confused, Naruto looked back at the door they were in front of and examined it more closely, and upon doing so found his mistake. After putting up with the abuse and hatred of the villagers for so long, he had gained the ability of tuning out their harsh actions and words against him. May had no such defense. His door was littered with graffiti writing in pocket marked with holes and burn marks. The hateful things said about him obviously roused May's sadness and anger. "I'm sorry, I had hoped you wouldn't have to see something like this," Naruto sadly admitted. However, he knew that this was something he had to revisit to finally move on. They really mean all these things? Dead demon, the Nine Tails is dead, they really believed you were the monster? May asked quietly, seeming to be in denial of Konoha's actions. Yes, was all Naruto said. It was all he could say. If he were a few years younger and had never left Konoha, he would blatantly deny the villagers' involvement and just blame it on traveling vandals or something. But not anymore. He could not lie to himself or May about something like this. It was the sad truth. I can't believe it. How could they be so cruel? They were afraid. Few knew of what the Yondaime did to defeat Kyuubi, and even fewer truly knew how the seal worked. They all believed I was the Kyuubi in human form. Andy was hated for it. May looked at him with such sadness, even pity. I don't want your pity, May. What happened has happened. It's best that we both just accept it and move on, Naruto announced rather harshly, pushing open what was left of the door and striding into his old apartment. May calmed herself and realized just what Naruto had said. It was true that she felt sorry for Naruto, who couldn't. He has grown so much since then, but inside, he still is the lonely little boy. I have to be there for him as he was for me. Walking into the apartment, both took notice that all the inside was marked with soot and charred remains of furniture still remained. They had burned the inside of his apartment as if it was tainted. Naruto once again thanked his younger self for taking all of his belongings with him as he sifted through what was left, trying to remember where everything once was. I never really had anything special. Everything that was important to me I brought along. This was where the couch Wazami bed was, right in there, and it's also where I found most of my parents' inheritance. Wow, I really don't like being here. It just feels so awkward. I feel like I just got pulled back to a place that I tried so hard to escape from. I don't know, maybe I'm just going crazy or something. May walked up to him and held his face with both of her hands, cupping his cheeks. She smiled softly at his sad attempt of denying his feelings. Naruto, you don't have to lie to me or yourself. Just like I did not want to talk of the massacres, you do not want to talk about your past, you don't want to relive it. I'm here for you, we trust one another with these things. You can cry with me and I can shoulder your burden just as you have done the same for me. What you said is right, I am no longer alone and neither are you. Naruto just wanted to deny the ugly truth of her statement, say he was fine and that he thought it was time they left. But, he just couldn't. He didn't want to keep living with the feelings he had whenever he thought of his past in Konoha. 2. Naruto couldn't think of how to start. He didn't know what to say. Is this how May felt? Start from the beginning, Naruto. I will listen to your story. And so Naruto did tell her his past, and she listened. She listened when no one else would. Konoha Forest, you all know the mission and details, right? Yamato asked his two subordinates, Sai and Sakura. Both nodded. Their mission brief back in Konoha illuminated what the plan was. They were to head to river country through grass and inspect the suspected area of where Naruto first fought the Akatsuki and to try and recover any further evidence that could improve relations with Kiri and Konoha. Tsunade wished to form an alliance with May's country, but Kiri's hesitation was understandable. They needed something tangible to truly strike a deal with Water Country, and their mission was imperative to the Nation of Fire. Konoha, village gate. After a heartfelt day where both lovers entrusted not just their minds but emotions to one another, the two shinobi were ready to go back home and take a nice bath back at the estate. Tsunade stood alongside Kakashi to say goodbye to the two, wishing them well on their travels. See ya, Bachan, I'll be back next month for sure, Naruto called over his shoulder as he began to walk away, waiting for May to finish her goodbyes. Seeing she was being left behind, May sufficed with a simple wave and ran to catch up to Naruto. They began to jump through the trees intent on arriving in Kiri as quickly as possible. Their trip was silent and peaceful as the sun descended below the horizon, but things were becoming very loud in Kiri. Kirigakure, Prison Kyo sat in a room that he had been dragged off to by the burly guards. Apparently someone wanted to see him. He had thought they had forgotten about him after the Mizukage had him tried and arrested. She was a true tyrant. If only the people could see that Yagura was right in killing off the Uzumaki and the clans then. His thoughts were interrupted when the person that called the meeting entered. His eyes widened a bit in surprise when he saw it to be one of fellow councilmen. He sat on the other side of a table from Kyo, as directed by the guards. "What do you want? Why have you come here, to laugh? To tell me that the Mizukage was right to imprison me and that you are working on having me executed just because I spoke the truth?" He raised his voice slowly throughout his rant, finishing it by slamming his fists onto the table in anger. The guards moved to control him, but the other councilmen just waved them off. "I came here to ask for your help. We are becoming what we no longer wish to be, and it is because of the people in charge that this has happened. All I ask is that when you are released, you promise to help us." Kyo was intrigued but suspicious of the vague offer. What exactly was the man trying to get at? "Speak plain, what kind of help?" "Help rectifying the problem, of course." Aim country, outskirts. Danzo and his men had arrived at the designated meeting spot, sitting in the rain with no sight of their informant. They were to meet the leader of Akatsuki apparently and try to get into a contract or alliance as he had with Orochimaru before. "Sir, are you sure he is coming?" Danzo looked to the man who asked with veiled annoyance. Patience was lost on the younger generation, even his root were not immune to it. "Yes, have patience. He should be Danzo was interrupted when a masked man in an Akatsuki robe arrived in front of them, causing the root to form a defensive formation around their leader. "Danzo, you have a lot of nerve trying to contact me. If pain had come in my place, you would be dead. You are a lucky man. Now, what the hell do you want?" The masked man asked, speaking very plainly with the Konoha runaway. "I wish to strike an alliance with Dash." He was once again interrupted by a fit of laughter from the man in front of him, causing his anger and his men's level of tolerance to rise. "Show respect to Danzo SA-A. Root operative was stopped from yelling when he was backhanded by an irate Toby. "Maybe you should learn that there are others that need respect more than your Danzo-sama." He turned to face Danzo, completely unreadable behind the orange mask. "Now what could you give me a reason to listen to you and your alliance talk?" Danzo smiled a bit. "I can help you get the Jinchuriki, the 9 tails." Konoha Forest. Naruto was jumping through the trees, followed closely by Mei. As soon as he hit the next branch with his feet, he gripped his head from a sudden feeling of a dual alertness. "Someone threw one of my kunai, but who?" Mei noticed Naruto was no longer moving and went to his side, moving her hand to his temple and gently rubbing it. "What is it, Naruto? A bad headache?" she teased, not knowing that something was very seriously wrong. "It's someone threw my kunai, someone is in trouble. I have to go." Mei was unable to say anything more when he quickly made a shadow clone and disappeared in a yellow flash. Mei looked at the shadow clone, confusion evident in her gaze to it. The Naruto clone shrugged and scratched his head nervously, not sure of what to say. "Boss gave me the order of getting you back to Kiri unharmed, and that's what I plan on doing. Let's go." Mei hesitantly allowed herself to be led away by the clone, now having lost her Naruto so soon a second time. Please come back to me, Naruto." Grass country, forest clearing. Naruto arrived in a bright yellow flash, his broadsword in his hands and ready to fight. He looked up and saw a tree, his kunai embedded deep within it, as if someone threw it from desperation. He looked around but saw no one. The battle had obviously been here. However, the ground was marked with holes and craters while numerous trees were knocked down. Hearing the faint sounds of battle, Naruto began to run towards the sound of battle. Jumping through the trees, he felt the earth shake again and looked up to see a large explosion of smoke and ash push up into the sky. Forcing himself to move quicker, he decided that it must be Sakura who had called for him and not Gaara. Jumping past the last tree, Naruto came across the scene of battle and his focus was first brought to the pink head of Sakura. She was on the ground, beaten and bloodied by someone, and her mouth and eyes were wide open in terror towards someone Naruto was not looking at. Yamato was panting heavily while holding his side, also looking in the same direction with anger. Finally swiveling his head towards the fight, Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the perpetrator of the damage. Sai was impaled on a long katana. The weapon was being wielded by none other than the missing member of Team 7, Sasuke Uchiha. His face was emotionless while Sai's was one of surprise. Orochimaru and Kabuto stood off to the side. Both were full of glee and smirking at the carnage. Sasuke looked up to the tree where Naruto stood and his eyes widened ever so slightly at the sight of his Kiri Jounin attire, not exactly understanding what was going on. "Naruto," he said without emotion. It made everyone look up to the tree. Sakura could not smile, but her eyes told everyone of her joy to see Naruto, silently whispering his name. Sasuke. Naruto's body began to tremble with emotion, his muscles flexed in anticipation. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. If you want early updates, check out Patreon. This is Fox Sage and I'm signing off.